TG Geeks, episode 243, October 14th, 2019. What exactly is the liminal sky? Hello and welcome to another webcast from tggeeks.com, where Ben and Keith, the Two Gay Geeks, talk about all aspects of geekdom and nerdery, sci-fi, comics, film, horror, genre, you name it, we talk about it. I'm Keith Lane. We're coming to you from TG Squared Studios in lovely Phoenix, Arizona, where it's a very, very busy weekend.
And I'm Ben Raggington, also coming to you from the very same place.
And let's just get right to it.
Prepare for hyperdrive.
Meanwhile, in the Hall of Episodes, the Two Gay Geeks are discussing this.
Well, in this episode, we have an interview with Mr. J. Scott Coatsworth, who has a new book coming out tomorrow, as a matter of fact, if you're listening to this on Monday. On Tuesday, October 15th, it's the Liminal Sky Series, the third book in that series, and we're going to talk to him about that book and how he came to write the whole series. Have our birthday shout-outs, our featured podcast of the week, and the feedback, as always, and a few shout-outs. And in our second segment, we have a couple of interesting things. We've done 2 film festivals this last weekend. And
still in the middle of one as of this recording.
Exactly. And then we're going to have our weekly recap and our shout-outs. And so I'm kind of ready to get on with this so we can go to the rest of the film festival that we have today. So let's get right to it. And this time, we welcome back to our show Mr. J. Scott Coatsworth, who is a webmaster, web designer, and an author. So welcome to the welcome to the show, Scott.
That last one's the important part.
That's the important part. That's why we're here to talk to him.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's why I got the invite.
Yeah. So welcome back to the show. I know we talked to you last time about who you were and all that kind of neat stuff. But we're here to talk about a new book that you have coming out, but just for benefit of our listeners that don't know who you are, give us the 3-minute tutorial on your life and where you are.
Give us the elevator pitch.
Exactly. There you go.
Okay, well, it's sci-fi meets gay. There you go. Yeah, basically, I've been writing for all my life. I kind of left it for a while because I didn't really get anywhere with it, but then I started again in my mid-40s, and I'm 51 now. And I got my kind of writing break through doing some gay romance stuff with Dream Spinner. Mm-hmm. But that wasn't really I enjoyed doing it, but my love has always been sci-fi and fantasy. So I found myself kind of more and more moving over to writing sci-fi and fantasy with LGBTQ characters, really diverse characters. And I have 2 trilogies out now. I've got the Oberon Cycle, which the last book, which Athani came out in February. And then the one we're talking about today is the Liminal Sky Series. And the new book on that, the Shoreless Sea, comes out when this comes out, just a couple days. So it'll be on the 15th of October.
Yeah. So we talked to you. I discovered you through Gay Sci Fi, and I don't remember whether it was. I don't remember how I got connected with you, but I discovered Gay Sci Fi, which is one of your websites that you run.
Queer Sci Fi, yeah. And
then we started chatting and kind of interviewed you last time, and then I picked up these 2 books, the 2 books preceding the one that you are going to release as of tomorrow, because this comes out the 14th. Right. And I picked those books up and I read them, and it's amazing. I love your writing. I can also tell the difference between book 1 and book 2. And why don't you give a little background on book 1, because I know that it's an older story and then you continued on in book 2. Is that
Yeah, so when I was writing back in my mid-teens, or no, mid-teens, mid-20s, I actually finished a book that was called The Shoreless Sea, which is the title of the newest one, which is, it's actually later on in the time frame from where I am right now. And when I came back to writing, I wanted to do something with that series, but I realized that my style had changed. I had a lot more maturity under my belt, and as a writer, I was in a different place. So I came with the idea of going back from that book, which was basically set on a generation ship somewhere out in the middle of space that's gotten far enough from its origins that it's almost like a fantasy story, the people that live inside it, and to figure out how that story began. So, where did it start? How was the ship created? What were the circumstances on Earth at the time? And so I started, when I was getting submitted to these romance publishers, I was also writing this. And I wrote it as a novella originally called Seedling, about this basically genetically created seed that could be planted on an asteroid and then would tear the asteroid apart and build a world. But yeah, so that was one of the very first things that I actually wrote when I came back to it. And it's been 5 years now, and I've really kind of grown a lot as a writer. So I did the next two after that in the following year and a half or so, and then sold that book and then started on the next one. So the whole series up till now has really kind of encapsulated the time frame of my actual published writing career from the start of it to where I am now.
Yeah,
so it's interesting you say that.
Yeah, I could see the difference between the difference in your writing between book one and book two, and it's amazing how you kind of grew up, if you will, into the writing. I loved book one; the story was incredible, and then book two, what I found interesting was at some point in the story, you started doing these little vignettes as you would do in a TV series or a movie, where you give a little piece of the story and at the same time then you break to the other piece of the story that's going on at the same time with some other characters, and then it just kind of all meshes together and then becomes one story at some point. And mm-hmm. I really liked that. And I didn't notice that so much in the first book, but there were actually fewer characters in the first book too, as opposed to what we have now. And I'm very excited to see where the story ends up, shall we say.
Okay. It's interesting. Yeah, I've always been a fan of these books that have, 10 gazillion characters. The Wheel of Time, Robert Jordan was like, I was in hog heaven with like 10 million point of view characters.
Right.
Some people don't like that at all, so it's a kind of a reader taste thing. But I tend to use that, and I especially use it as you kind of get into the end of a story, where a lot of times you've got all these threads that have been going on individually, but then they all start threading together as people come together, and the actions kind of all intertwine to kind of hit the end. So, you go from having these whole either chapter long or half chapter long in one point of view, and all of a sudden you're like, 2 seconds in this guy and 2 seconds in that guy.
Exactly.
You kind of feel it all just like come together.
And maybe the end of book one was that way, and it just kind of rolled into book two, and I didn't notice it because early on, in book one, there's 3 characters really, in essence, and then it begins to add more characters, and I guess maybe I didn't recognize that.
And this one is very different from most of my works. Well, when I first started out, I was doing short stories, and I did novellas. And my thought was that I wanted to kind of work my way up as I kind of fine-tune my writing process. And so this is actually, each of these books is 3 novellas, and that goes all through the trilogy.
Right.
And again, some people like that, and then some people find that it kind of chops it up. They want the one long continuous story. But yeah, one thing I realized in doing book 3, The Shoreless Sea, is that ultimately this series, in a lot of ways, is Andy's story.
Right.
We see her in the first part, and in the third part of book 1, she comes in for the first time, and actually she follows the book all the way through to the very last story, and is pretty much in everything one way or another from there on. So I'll be interested to see once you read it what you think of that, because it kind of is not just the arc of the world, but it's also the arc of her character.
Right. So I just have to ask this question because this is it's a story about a biosphere, if you will, and having grown up in Tucson, did that kind of the biosphere too, did that influence your storytelling and kind of provide a pardon the pun, seed for this story?
Bum.
It actually was a piece of it. So when I was in high school, that was when they were first planning that thing.
Right.
And I had this like just dream of being there and being part of it. And I never actually did anything about it, but I had this okay, I'm going to find out like how I can apply for it, and then I'm going to get into this thing, and I'm going to be in this. And so I had this obsession with it for a while. I had actually moved away from Tucson when it was finally built, so I didn't get to go to it until I think about 10 years ago. I was back visiting my mom, who still lives there, because we're in Sacramento now.
Right.
And we took the tour of the biosphere, and now it's just basically a tourist attraction.
Right.
But yeah, this idea that you could create a biosphere, an actual standalone place where it's got everything that you need for life and for human life, but it's totally disconnected from everything. It's what we have to have if we're going to somehow go from here to another star system, especially if there ends up being no way to do the hyperspace, the faster than light thing.
Exactly.
So yeah, and how that can go out of whack in different ways.
Right.
And I didn't, in this particular part of the series, I haven't gone into much depth of the balance of things. But that is something that I'm thinking about for future books in that series of, how, like, what happens if, the mix of oxygen to everything else gets off balance, like we're having, with climate change here.
Right.
What happens if, one part of the natural biosystem starts eating all the rest of it,
Right.
So, yeah, there's a lot of ground to cover there.
Yeah, I had wondered that, and I'm glad that my hunch paid off there.
Well, I lived like literally 10 minutes from the biosphere when I was in Tucson.
Oh, wow.
On, North Oracle, so yeah, it was like right there.
Wow, that's incredible.
So with the stories that you're writing, and I find this interesting because you were talking a lot about your character arcs, and now you're talking about a bit about the biosphere. With science fiction generally, there needs to be obviously some element of world building. So when you were creating this universe for the story to be told, did you find yourself, as you were building it, did you find yourself to be more of a story plot development kind of person versus a character? I mean, where did you put your emphasis, or did you find yourself being very, very balanced between the two? Because I've seen that some books are either very heavy on just the world, the building, to the point where it becomes almost like info dump, but right. It's all about just the story and the plot movement itself. And then there are other writers that are really heavy on just the character development and let the sort of the story move as the characters develop. Where did your writing fall in between that, and did you find yourself actually changing as you evolved as a writer?
That's a great question. Yeah, I've seen these new trailers for this show about the astronaut that comes back down to Earth, and she's kind of disconnected from everything, and I guess it's based on that love triangle that a few years ago. And it seems like that, just in the commercials, that's very much a character driven with a science fiction kind of backdrop to it. I've always been, in my reading habits, more on the side of the science fiction stuff. And yeah, with good characters, but really I like I like being out there in space, being on a different planet, being in Earth and seeing, where we are in 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 years. So I was definitely, when I started, much more heavily on the world building and the plot side of things. And I got called on it when I was doing my short stories and novellas when I first starting out. A number of reviewers called me on my characterization that it was not strong enough. So that really has been one of the things that I have worked on the last 3 or 4 years, trying to figure out each character at the beginning. I did a book called River City Chronicles, which is a magical realism tale set in Sacramento as a blog post thing, and now it's a novel.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, my first thing to do with that was to figure out that every character in it had a secret, and that those secrets then drove the action for the rest of the story. So that was my first kind of really attempt to, at the beginning, think about who the characters were instead of just sitting down and writing this really cool world and then having to figure it out on the way. Not to say that they don't change and adapt and evolve over the course of the story, but I really do try to put a lot more work into the characters themselves at the get-go. And I think that shows as you read, like you said, as you kind of read through the different books I've written as you go forward, you can see the change in how the writing evolves.
Right. Interesting that you should bring that up, which now brings me to
his famous
my famous question that I always ask of authors.
Oh, no.
well, especially
it's a good question.
It is a good question, and I find this fascinating, especially with authors that have written strong, very, very strong, well-developed characters. Have the characters in your head, have they actually started to take their own voice and actually talk to you?
No.
Really? You're the first.
So this is it's a bone of contention with some of my friends we've had this question before on Queer Sci Fi, and they're like, no, the characters are just themselves, and they don't speak to me per se. However, I do have a really clear sense, especially once I get to the end of a novel, who a character is and how they would react in any given situation.
Okay, so that's sort of the same thing then.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, so it's not like I'm actually hearing their voices, but it's more like I can put myself in their headspace and think, how would I react in the situation and why?
Okay, well, that's kind of the
along
the same lines of what he's asking. I mean, some people do say, that the characters are screaming in their head, "Tell my story, tell my story.
Yeah.
This is where I want to go, and I'm not going to let you do anything else with my character." That type of thing.
Yeah, because we've talked to some authors that have literally they've sort of done a plot outline and say, okay, I want my story to go this way, this way, this way. And as they start doing it, the characters start screaming in their head saying, no, that's not how I would do it. And then next thing you know, the author then finds themselves at a roadblock because they can't go any further because the character will not let them. The character involved or characters at that point of the story will not let them go any further. So now they have to completely jettison what they were working on at that very moment and say, okay, how would you do it? And the character would say, well, this is what I would say, and this is how I would react. And next thing you know, they go into this other direction, and then boom, the entire story fleshes itself out in a way that the author never expected to have happen.
You see, I have that happen, but it kind of usually happens a little differently for me. So, in the Rising Tide, there was a character named Gordy.
Right. And
he was just a small character. He was basically in the V world, in basically in old New York. And at one point, he urges one of the other characters to take him with him back out to the real world, because they all know the real world exists. And then that's kind of the end of it. So that character actually becomes a full-fledged character in the last book.
Wow.
And,
cool.
Yeah, so there was something about that. I'd written it in, and at the time I didn't really think much about it. I just thought, this guy is he knows there's this outside world out of this virtual world he lives in, and this virtual world loops. So it goes over a certain period of time, and then it loops back again.
Right.
It's based on a real period of time in one of the characters' lives, in Jackson's life.
Yeah. When I read that, I thought, that there's more to that than you're writing. So
that actually provided a lot of the plot for the last book.
Oh,
and I won't say any more till you read it. But so there's things like that. Just little things that sometimes you write as just like a throwaway character, whatever, and then that character just sticks in your head, and you think, I need to do something with that. I need to take and that character and tell his story or their story. And other times you will be kind of in that stuck place you're talking about, and it'll be usually I'll go on a bike ride or be out somewhere where I just be in the car and somewhere where I don't have to be thinking about other things. And the solution for that little plot point problem or character problem or issue will just come to me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's then I have to either pull over and write it down or just think about it really hard so I don't forget it, and then go back and work on it. And then the work often shoots off in another unexpected direction that I hadn't planned on.
Or you walk in the other room and you've forgotten about it. That's me.
Well, okay, so I ordered a glow in the dark pen from Amazon last week because I tend to have ideas, writing and otherwise, in the middle of the night.
Oh wow,
that's common.
Yeah, they plague me so I can't sleep, so I have to get up and write them down, and then they go away. But I didn't want to have to always get up,
Right.
So I now have a glow-in-the-dark pen, that lights up with a little flashlight and a little pad. I can write them by my bedside.
Oh, cool.
It's amazing the things that come to the mind when you're in that semi-conscious state. It's like, the right side of the brain, all of a sudden, the doors open up and this garage sale of material starts pouring through. You're not the first person to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had this dream about this guy that basically kind of jumped worlds chasing after this other guy that was changing things. Basically, the other guy was killing off the main person in each of those other worlds that would be able to save the world ultimately.
Wow!
And I woke up and wrote that down, and I just actually sold that to Galaxy's Edge as a short story that'll be coming out next year.
Very nice.
Oh, cool. That's
so like
cool.
one of those dreams, kind of actually, or like ideas, midnight ideas, became a full story.
Wow, it's amazing, and It sounds like you follow the same what Ben was talking about, but only in a different fashion. It plays out differently for you.
There are other authors that we've spoken to that have kind of come to the same place that you are at, where, I mean, they may not be speaking to you verbatim in your head. There are some authors where they have that, but the other authors, instead, they say, but I know the character well enough so that I could put myself in their position and know how they would react.
Yeah, so your characters really are driving the storytelling,
Right.
in essence, yeah. So
right now I'm working on the latest book, which is actually a jump off from Liminal Sky, and the idea behind it is what happened back on Earth.
That would be great.
So there's 4 characters in it that I think they're probably my most detailed characters yet in terms of really having thought them through and what their pasts are, who they are, how they interact. So I'm hoping once that gets published, it's currently in. Have you heard of Pitch Wars?
No.
I
haven't.
just kind of.
So it's basically a mentoring program, and you have about 3,500 writers that submit and 102 mentors this year. And the mentors pick one book each, and then they work with you to try to get the book to be as good as it can. And then there's an end component where it gets posted on the website, and agents come in and look at it.
Oh, cool.
So I have that in Pitch Wars right now, and I'm like biting my fingernails off because this is like the exact time when we should be hearing if somebody wanted it or not to work with me.
Oh, cool.
But yeah, so that I'll be interested to see once that does come out, wherever it does, what you think of it, because it really is. It's again very cinematic, like the Liminal Sky series,
right?
But also very, very character driven.
Yeah, it would be interesting. Is that going to take place several years, or is it a history, or is it just like the last 6 months or whatever on
where does
Earth?
it fall in the timeline?
Where does it fall in the timeline of?
So basically, it's this one. I'd love to go back and do some of the history, but this one starts at the same time as the third book, a third part of the first book of Liminal Sky, the Stark Divide. Okay. When basically the war is broken out, the last war.
Okay.
And then it jumps forward about 117 years.
Wow.
And it is the people that survived on the moon.
Wow.
Interesting.
And it's far out.
It's called drop knots because the idea is that they are now going back to re-inhabit the Earth. So they're not astronauts, they're drop knots.
Interesting.
Very nice.
That's great.
You just touched on something that kind of stuck in my head, and I want to ask this before I forget it. And that is when you're developing your characters. How can I ask this question? When you're starting to write a story, I would imagine that as an author, you already have a cast of characters, or at least primarily a cast of characters in your head, at least some kind of an idea as to, okay, I've got this character. But how well developed are they? Do you write outlines on each of these characters? How well developed are they before you actually start writing the story itself?
I usually do that kind of at the get-go as I'm going, the first chapter or so. And I know their name, I know their ethnicity, I know like if they have a certain tick or certain issue. So I know quite a bit about them to start on the basic physical level, and then kind of have an idea, like temperament-wise. Mm-hmm. But sometimes the temperament, I think, is probably the thing that takes the longest to develop, because as I'm writing them, then they kind of, in that way, maybe they do speak to me, and that they do kind of develop their own sort of voice the way they are. So I have like Hera in the new story, the Drop Knot story. She is a paraplegic who has these, like they have the replacement legs now, but she's got basically braces that let her walk. And she's like a go-getter, like just really, jumps into the face of danger. And then you've got Rai, who's a gay guy who's kind of not broken, but he's very shy, very kind of very second thinking himself. And then Tian is much more. She's Chinese background, and she is much more steady, level-headed, and she would never curse. So there's like certain things like this as you figure out, and then Ghost is kind of the big, sort of dumb but smart engineer. So each one has like kind of their own feel and the way that they act in the world and the way that then they interact with each other. There's what's his name? Damon Suede. He's a gay writer, and he had told me about a technique at a conference a couple years ago that he did this seminar. You find an action verb for each of your characters. And then that verb helps guide what the character will do throughout the story and how they will interact. And if you do like a romance, then you have, one character's action verb is like advance, and the other one's is retreat.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And so that sets out a whole dynamic between the characters, just in those two verbs. And I use it. I'm not strict with it, but I do have it. There's a verb for each character that I did this one on, and then I kind of just refer back to it periodically just to kind of remind myself that that's where their headspace is.
Right.
Wow, that is fascinating. And I would love to talk to you more about that because I'm fascinated with the creative process. But we're coming up on the red line, so instead I'm going to ask this. Where can people find you on social media, and where can they learn more about your books, especially the new one that is coming out? How can they learn about that? Where can they go to get those?
Awesome. So my own website is J. Scott Coatsworth, and that's Coats like jackets, and then Worth, WRTH.com. That's got all the information about my books and me and what I do. I'm on Instagram, J. Scott Coatsworth. I'm on Twitter as JS Coatsworth, and then Facebook is J. Scott Coatsworth. So any of those places you can find me.
And of course, you have Queer Sci Fi.
And we have Queer Sci Fi, yes, which is a great group if you want to just see what's coming out in the world in the Queer Sci Fi universe.
Absolutely. There's a lot of good stuff out there.
In fact, one person we're going to be talking to later, I came across him because of Queer Sci Fi.
Yeah.
Who's that?
Trevor Barton.
Oh, yay.
In fact,
Trevor's awesome.
we're talking
Robots.
to him here in half an hour.
Yeah, in fact, I reviewed Brobots, and he loved it. So, and I loved it too. So, you provide a great service with Queer Sci-Fi.
Well, thank you. Say hi to Trevor for me when you talk
Will
to
do.
him.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Scott, for being on the show.
Thanks. I appreciate it, guys. You guys are awesome.
Hi, this is Joe Spector from Arizona Opera, and you're listening to the Two Gay Geeks.
Well, that was a very interesting interview with Scott. We've talked to him once before, but this was really great because...
And I got to talk to him as author, I think, because last time it was more about the website and what he was doing.
Yeah, exactly. And I've read the first two books, and as of this recording, I'm right in the middle of the third book, and he sent me, thank you, a advanced reading copy, and of course we'll buy a copy of it when it comes out, but I'm right in the middle of it, and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm excited for where the rest of it is going here, so I can't wait to finish it. Unfortunately, we have a busy weekend, so I don't know if I'm going to finish by the time it comes out. So here's a few selected birthdays for October 14th through October 20th, 2019. October 14th, Roger Moore, Bond. James Bond. Sir Roger Moore. What else can you say? Not much.
Not much, really.
Ralph Lauren, who actually, did you know he was born in the Bronx, and the company that he was working for as a designer did not pick up on the opportunity for men's neckties, so he quit and started his own business, and Neiman Marcus discovered him and ordered 100 dozen of his neckties, and that's where he kind of started. Of course, Ralph Lauren of Polo fame and etc. And interesting little tidbit, he has a very large collection, 70 cars, of vintage automobiles.
Oh, indeed.
At his New York estate. So kind of interesting. Also on October 14th, Harry Anderson.
Wow, left us way too soon.
Yeah, of Night Court, as everybody will remember you of Night Court.
I almost worshipped. There's a nice little display of him at the Magic Castle. I almost got on my knees and worshipped like it were a shrine.
Yeah. And also on October 14th, Thomas Keller, restaurateur and chef. And the French Laundry, that's his the big signature restaurant. And I didn't realize the reason it's called the French Laundry, it was actually, the building was an actual French steam laundry.
Oh.
And that's why they called it the French Laundry. So, and he's had a number of different restaurants that he started.
Well, good thing, because you can't get into the French Laundry.
Exactly. Also on October 14th, Thomas Dolby. He invented the Dolby sound system.
It's a fact.
It's a fact. No, we all know Thomas Dolby. What is it? Blinded by Science?
Blinded by Science.
Yes. And also on October 14th, a very good friend, Mary Jean Starr. Happy birthday, Mary Jean. And her shoes. October 15th, Friedrich Nietzsche, whose famous quote, "Oh, God is dead." And then Emeril Lagasse, who, bam!
Yeah.
And Mario Puzo, the author of The Godfather. And Mervyn LeRoy, he was actually the producer for The Wizard of Oz, and most famous film directing was Little Caesar with Edward G. Robinson. And Penny Marshall, who actually is the sister of Gary Marshall. Gary Marshall. Yes, he's a sister.
Oh, I didn't know that, actually.
I didn't realize it either. And also Richard Carpenter.
Who's the brother to Karen Carpenter.
Exactly. I was going to say something about Penny Marshall. She actually directed Jumpin' Jack Flash and Big. And for the movie Big, it was the first female-directed film to gross over $100 million. So she really was a big deal
She shattered the ceiling for a number of people.
Exactly. Also on October 15th, a good friend of ours, Rasha Mohammed. Happy birthday, Rasha. October 16th, Angela Lansbury. How pleasant.
Now, actually, she's not the one who said that, but...
No, but that's from Bedsticks and Broomknobs. Broomsticks and Bedknobs, yeah. Bedknobs and Broomsticks. There we go. Among other
Bed
things.
and breakfast.
Bed and breakfast, exactly. Also, Oscar Wilde, who there's an apocryphal story about Oscar Wilde that he was with the Queen Mum, Queen Elizabeth's mother, and they were wandering around somewhere. He was wandering with her, I think at the races, and he was eyeing the page boys, and she said to him, "Oscar, behave. They count them before they put them out." See, anyway. Also on October 16th, Eugene O'Neill, who was playwright who introduced realism into U.S. drama and portrayed characters on the fringe of society in his works.
Well, didn't he do Death of a Salesman?
I
think that was his.
That was Arthur Miller.
Oh, Arthur Miller.
Yeah,
my bad.
It's coming up, actually.
Oh, I'll go figure that. Yeah. But I know I've read something of Eugene O'Neill's when I was in humanities class.
Yeah,
I just don't remember what.
I can't remember what. There was one that anyway. Joseph Malazzi, who was the Stargate SG-1 and Universe.
Well, I did
producer on that.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah. And also our Facebook friends Gilead, the artist, and John Eisen. Happy birthday, John. And Austin Sloan. Happy birthday, Austin. October 17th, Rita Hayworth, who was once called the Love Goddess because she was a screen idol of the 40s. She died at the age of 68 from complications of Alzheimer's in 1980. And it was her death and her illness that actually helped increase funding for research. I was going to say,
if one of that didn't create an awakening of
it did
of the plight of Alzheimer's patients.
It did. So too bad that she had to die from that, but she was a beautiful woman. Also on October 17th, Matthew McFadden. I put him on here just because we happened to see him in a film just the other night.
Oh, yes.
And his actually is just in the current war that we saw. Mm-hmm. Also on October 17th,
there's
Arthur Miller.
Didn't he write? No.
Yes. He wrote Death of a Salesman and The Crucible, and was actually once married to Marilyn Monroe.
Oh,
he was actually a controversial playwright because he wrote about things that were, interesting
mm-hmm.
and society in general. He testified before the House Un-American Activities Committee with McCarthy. Also on October 17th, Mae Jemison, who was the first African-American woman in space.
You forgot somebody.
Margot Kidder. Yes,
How can you forget Lois Lane?
How can you forget Lois? Yes, Margot. And Evel Knievel.
What's there to be said about that?
Yeah.
That maniac.
Yep. Mark Gatiss. And good friends Monty Yazzie and Neil Halford. Happy birthday, Neil. October 18th, Zac Efron, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Chuck Berry, who wrote the song Route 66, Chuck Lorre, who is actually the producer of Big Bang Theory, and Dawn Wells.
Oh, Marianne.
Marianne from Gilligan's Island. Did you know that Marianne's last name was Summers?
No, I didn't actually.
Yeah, I didn't either until I looked it up.
We never hear it.
I know.
Maybe it appeared in one episode.
Maybe. And she and Tina Louise are the only two surviving members of that show left. Also on October 18th, Peter Boyle, George C. Scott, Howard Shore, who has some incredible music that he has written, and Zach Noe Towers. Happy birthday, Zach. On October 19th, John Lithgow, Jon Favreau, Michael Gambon, Peter Max, who 70s artist and introduced the, I guess you could call it the psychedelic style.
Artwork, yeah.
Yeah. And Auguste Lumiere.
One of the other Lumieres.
One of the brothers.
Oh, we're not watching Hugo again. We
we
just watched it.
Yes. And October 20th, Viggo Mortensen, Tom Petty, Bela Lugosi, who is most famed for
Dracula.
His portrayal of Dracula in 1931. Charles Ives, who wrote some incredibly unusual music. His Variations on America is probably his best known.
It's my favorite.
But he wrote a piece for two pianos, and one was supposed to be in the basement. He was actually a church organist, and there was supposed to be a second piano in the basement to be played at the same time as the one up on stage to give some harmonic resonance.
That would be unusual because there's a sound delay.
Yep, exactly.
So that would create some very strange music.
Yeah, so his music was definitely, he was actually an insurance actuary, and that was his business, and he wrote music on the side. Also on October 20th, Jerry Orbach, who was Lumiere in Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, okay, I'm sensing a theme.
As well as other things. And Thomas Newman, who actually is a film score composer himself. And Grandpa Jones, who didn't have anything to do with films, but he was on Hee Haw.
Hee Haw.
Yeah. And also Facebook friend Sam Garcia Southern, who wrote or directed a short film that we saw at Phoenix Film Festival last year. And John Derrick, a high school classmate of mine, and Sue Hodge Parker. Happy birthday, Sue. And that is it for the birthdays this time.
Technorama, the podcast for geeks, because geeks are better than cool. You don't hear someone say, "Get away from me, you cool person." Who's gonna have their 65-inch home theater system installed by the Cool Squad?
Not me, that's for sure.
How much cool cred do you have? Not enough to care about. Think you'll find any canned unicorn meat at thinkcool.com? It's just a part domain name. They don't even have roadkill in a paper cup. That's why you need to start listening to Technorama, because that's what geeks do. Go to chuckchat.com and listen to Technorama before you turn cool.
Go give a listen to our friends Chuck and Craig over at Technorama.
Rama.
There you go. I was waiting for that.
I'm Daniel Radcliffe, and I believe that reaching out for help is the bravest thing a person can do. If you are struggling and need support, call the Trevor Lifeline at 1-866-488-7386. It's free and confidential, and trained counsellors are there to listen 24/7 without judgment. To learn more about the Trevor Project's life-saving work for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or questioning young people, go to thetrevorproject.org.
Okay, I got some little feedback I want to jump on really quickly here. Starting off with, this is regarding TG Geeks episode number 240. And I should point out that each of these little feedback bits that we're giving, the links to these will be available in the show notes for this episode at tggeeks.com. And this starts off with, this is in reference to TG Geeks episode number 240. And we got some thank yous. These are, I'm guessing, birthday thank yous because we wish these people some happy birthdays.
Yep.
First with Brian Dillon. He says, thank you for the B-Day wishes. Bidet. And then James Drogo, he also says, thanks, guys. And oh, yes, Catherine.
Jason Drogo.
Jason. It says,
Yes.
oh, did I? It is supposed to be Jason. You're right. Yes. My bad. Anyway, Jason Drogo says, thanks, guys. And then Kathy Brent, she says, thanks for the birthday wishes as well. And then moving on, this is regarding Ben's breakdown. Judy is an unfocused and sensationalized depiction of Judy Garland. Got a comment first from John Smith on Twitter. He says, that's really a shame. It is hard not to sensationalize aspects of her life. This might sound wacky, but I wonder if Barbra Streisand or Cher had produced or directed it, it would have been a much better biopic. And I'm like, I think he's got a point there.
You never know.
I think that really would have made for a much better film because they would have been able to approach it from a much better standpoint than what we got in this film. But, we can, maybe in an alternate universe. And then I got a comment from John Eisen. He says, thank you. I have trepidation about this movie. I will see it and strive to keep an open mind, but Garland's memory and legacy are too important.
Absolutely.
And I welcome criticisms. And he's exactly right. That was my big issue as to why I didn't care for the movie. And then got a comment from Vernon Meyer. He says, CBS Sunday Morning had an interesting take on it. I think the point was to remember that it only covers the end of her life when she was fighting drugs and alcohol. The commentator said, and I think Zellweger said, he admired the determination of Judy to keep working and trying to entertain even when she got booed off the stage. I would have agreed with that had that been the focus, but I didn't feel like that was for me.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. And then this is regarding news sushi number 81, Morsels of News from Japan and Beyond. And this is actually more directed toward Hamish Downey, who wrote the article. And this is from the Jode series, General Igel and the Genie. And they write, thanks for the shout out. And that is our feedback.
And you can leave a comment on our Facebook page or any place that you find us, whether it's tggeeks.com on any article and these episodes that we publish. You can comment on our Twitter page, on our Instagram, on YouTube, Facebook. Did I mention all of them? I think I got all
so.
that. If you leave a comment, we will give you a shout out on air, and you can also leave us a voicemail if you would like. You can call 469-TG-GEEKS, that is 469-844-3357, and we'll play that on air if you leave us a voicemail. And always, whenever leaving a comment anywhere, please play nice. Well, we got some number of things coming up. We've got lots of interviews that we have done over the last couple of weeks, and I can't remember who's up next, but we're going to have a really good interview for you. So we're just going to move right on. I got way out of line there. I don't know where I was. I lost my place in the script.
Oh, my.
If you are in transition or have already transitioned and are in crisis, or you know of someone in crisis, there is a special hotline just for you. The hotline is provided by translifeline.org and staffed by specially trained counselors who are transgender themselves. The hotline in the U.S. is 877-565-8860. In Canada, it is 877-330-6366. Or you can go to the translifeline.org for more information about the important work they are doing. Please reach out for help.
Yeah, baby. They're like two gay geeks. They're together, you know. They're two gay guys and they're geeks. Is that okay?
Actually, I got lost in my sound app. I skipped a line.
Oh, my.
That's why we kind of got confused there. This is our second segment, and we've got a couple of things that we wanted to talk about film festival-wise.
Yes.
So,
I mean, starting off with, we had an interesting film we got to see the other night. It was the opening night of the Peoria Film Festival. And that film was The Current War, and that is about the battle of Doctor Strange versus General Zod. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
No.
How did you know?
Well, because of the same actors. No, Thomas Edison and George Westinghouse.
And Doctor Strange was
assisted by Spider-Man.
Assisted by Spider-Man.
And General Zod had somebody cross over from another comic book franchise and was assisted by Hank McCoy, a.k.a. Beast. Yes. I mean, there were 4 actors from superhero genres that were in this thing. It kind of a bit of a mind blower. But this is a movie it was made in 2017, and because of the controversy that the Weinstein brothers had undergone, the movie got shelved. It actually got locked into a vault. Somebody got their hands on it, created a director's cut, and that is being released on later this month, October 25th, I want to say. And we got to see the screening. We got a screening of that, and oh my God, I really loved it.
It was a great film. The cinematography was
it's breathtaking.
Incredible.
It was a beautiful looking film.
Yes.
This is not a heavy actor film, even though they got some really good actors. It's not a character driven film, oddly enough. You think it would be, because of who the people are and their decisions to go after one another, but it's more story driven.
Yeah.
But I thought it was fantastic, and artistically it is beautiful. It's some of the best production values I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I thought it was lovely.
It was really good.
And you can find my review. It is on our website at tggeeks.com. But quickly, do you have any takeaways from that?
No. I just loved the film. I thought it was very interesting. It kept my attention. I don't know that there was really any slow part in it. I mean, there may have been a moment or two, but it kept my attention. The beauty of the cinematography and the sets and the set dressing and all of the attention to detail were just incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was great.
Yeah, it was beautiful to look at.
And now,
that takes us to another film festival.
Yes,
oh my
we're
God.
right in the middle of, as of this recording.
Right.
And we're going to be late today, so.
Well, maybe. We're going to be cutting right under the wire.
Yep.
But this was the Apocalypse Later International Fantastic Film Festival. Oh,
yes.
God, supercalifragilistic.
Exactly. Expialidocious.
Yeah,
yes.
this is put together. Well, we had the interview and article with Hal Estelle. He's the man who is running this incredible thing.
Overlord.
Yes, but what a festival!
Wow, yeah.
I mean, we can't go over everything. We will have an article coming out later this week that will cover each of the films that we saw, and there'll be little mini reviews. So this, just quick little thoughts on what each of these films were about.
Yeah.
But were there any that you really had that really stuck out for you that you can talk about?
Well,
and I say that with a reason, because some of them we cannot talk about.
Yeah, there was one that, no. I think Escape from North Korea.
I loved it. I loved it. What a trashy movie.
For last. It was
trashy film.
It was so horrible. It was good.
Yeah, it was ridiculously trashy. I absolutely loved it. We had some features.
Yeah, there was
as well.
There was a couple of features that were really good. The short film. What was it? About the two guys.
Shoot! Oh, God damn! I can't remember the name of it right now. But it was an interesting metaphor for AIDS.
Yes, it was really a fascinating little film, short film.
Yeah, I'm looking it up right now.
Very touching.
Virus, I think. No, not Virus. No. Oh my goodness. I can't find the name of it. Stigma.
Stigma, yes.
That was it. It was called Stigma.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what a beautiful movie.
Yeah, it was.
It was a horror flick, and it was creepy as anything, especially if you don't like bugs. I mean, I'm talking of the crawling kind. But wow, what a film. It was really strong. There were some others there that I thought were interesting. Yes, Atomic Ed. Yeah. Very unusual movie. Drops was another one that was kind of demonic, that dealt with I think family incest. Yeah. Lots of horror for humanity.
Yep.
Lots of dystopia, which put me in a really depressing state of mind.
Yeah, but there was some good stuff too.
Yeah, there were some good ones. I mean,
very well shot films. lovely looking films.
There was some of them were really just like, I don't want to say obtuse, but they were like really dense.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but it's fascinating. We'll be seeing more of it today. Yeah. And we hope to give a rundown when we're finally done with all that.
You bet. And that's it for our second segment. We always want to give a shout out to independent creators, whether it's filmmakers, comic book artists, writers. Please buy their stuff, watch their stuff, tell people about their stuff, whether it's a film, a book, or any kind of creation of any kind. If you see them at cons and whatnot, please have cash for them. They don't need the credit card fees. Please support independent creators. We want to give a shout out to the Joshua Tree Feeding Program. It's an HIV/AIDS community of Maricopa County, a feeding program for them, a nonprofit food pantry. They set it up like a store so that the clients can pick what they want so that no food is wasted. It's an all-volunteer organization, and please consider supporting Joshua Tree either through a single gift or a monthly recurring gift. Go to jtfp.org. The Grand Canyon Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence are hosting their third annual Red Dress Ball on November 16th at the Parsons Center for Health and Wellness. The proceeds go to Joshua Tree Feeding Program and AIDS Walk Arizona, sponsored by Aunt Rita's Foundation. The tickets are $20 a piece, and they're going to have lots of interesting things going on this year. So check it out.
Okay, so I'm going to quickly run down what we had running for this last week, starting with Sunday, October 6th. And again, all of these links will be in the show notes for this episode at tggeeks.com. So starting with October 6th, Sunday, Dr. Zombie and Monster Family, Physician number 69. On Monday, TG Geeks episode number 242. On Tuesday the 8th, Halistel interview. It's a standalone interview that is embedded in the article, which basically talks about Apocalypse Later International Fantastic Film Festival. On Wednesday, October 9th, Key West Film Festival announces the 4th annual Golden Key for Costume Design. On Thursday the 10th, we had a press release for the horror film The Turning. This is a trailer. You can catch it there, and it'll be in theaters on January 2020. And then on Friday, October 11th, News Sushi number 83, Morsels of News from Japan and Beyond. Also, we have a press release about National Coming Out Day for 2019. And to close it all off on Saturday, October 12th, Ben's Breakdown, Historical Drama Charges Up the Current War.
And you can find all these things at tggeeks.com and on our Facebook page, as well as Twitter and Instagram. We post everything there. So please check it out.
Must give some shout-outs. First to the Human Arkle. This is interesting. Well, first, the Arkle Times Post-Dispatch News that actually does reprint our articles from time to time. And it is, for Halloween, it is called The Human Arkle and Dale versus Evil.
There you go.
Which is, of course, that's very Brian Weber.
Name, yeah.
It's very Brian Weber. But it still has the same Twitter address, at Arkle, ARKLE, so you can find it there. And then he also has the Shameless Cash Grab Season 3. You can find it by going to youtube.com/Arkle Studios. And the last regular episode of Season 3, Episode 19, is up. And the wrap-up is scheduled for Halloween. Now, we must also give some shout-outs to some Facebook groups for allowing us to post our episodes and relevant articles on their pages. First, Two Gay Geeks After Hours. When I asked their moderators if I could share our content, they said, oh, please share away. And we do. And their URL is facebook.com/group/Gay Geeks After Hours. And we must also give a shout-out to The Gay Geek for also allowing us to share all of our lovely stuff there. And their page is facebook.com/group/The Gay Geek. And we must give thanks to their moderator, Jeremiah Reeves.
Thank you, Jeremiah. And lastly, we're now found on Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, as well as where other fine podcasts can be found. Also, check us out on Krypton Radio at 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. Pacific Time on Tuesdays, and listen to their other content. They are a 24-hour geeky internet radio station. Please rate us and review us on iTunes, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Okay, that should do it for this episode of TG Geeks Webcast. Be sure to check out the article for this webcast episode. We're going to have several links of things we talked about there. And remember, you can comment on our Facebook page or our website, tggeeks.com, or you can leave us a voicemail at 469-TG-GEEKS. That is 469-844-3357. From TG Squared Studios, I'm Keith Lane. Thanks for listening. Please be kind to yourself and others around you. Peace.
Cheers.